Minutes goal.
This is Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Forged Irish Stout. I'm delighted to be joined here with the Gad himself, Gareth A Davies. How are you this fine Tuesday afternoon, sir?
Very well, thank you. Sponsored by the Great Frog today, of course. Um, Wearing the jewels, and yeah, very, very well, thank you. On this overcast, rainy Tuesday, as we head into another fascinating fight week after an incredible week. This time last week, um, it was all about to go off, and so it did, all under wraps. And then what did we get? The most amazing announcement of fighting, if I could just use this prop, around the globe. There we go. I just banged it by chance then under there.
And it's
It's
come in useful. That's my thumbnail sorted. I suppose let's go into last week then before we go into what we've got this week. We had the press conference. Firstly, December the 23rd, Turkey Al Sheikh putting up to have these events, and obviously credited every single time. The first time we ever saw Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn on a press conference table together. Now, important to note how, some of these fights were spoke about, but thrown about with lawyers working diligently around the clock very, very quickly. I think within the space of 5 or 6 days, it sort of shows that if it's right and cooperation is necessary, then it will happen.
Yeah, three words: money, timing, and ego. I've used them before with you. I just think it fits in the heavyweight division. You've got that kind of triangle of success, if you like. The three things that bring all those fights together. I think it's about 9 days to get that card together. But obviously, the December 23rd card was originally going to be Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk for the undisputed title. Well, that had to move. Obviously, Fury not in a fit state after the shock of the Ngannou performance, and not the performance, but the shock physically that he took in that fight. I thought they pulled it together incredibly quick. I think it was about 2.5 weeks, actually, when I think about it now. But it was ready at that weekend. So an extraordinary job by everyone. Desire and willingness from, all the promoters. I think there's 12 promoters on the card, and all that you can imagine, all the managers there are involved in that rundown. I think I counted 10 of the top 15 with the 4 sanctioning bodies in the heavyweight division are on that card. Wow. So, you start with Wilder and Joshua and Hrgovic and Arslanbek Makhmudov, Joseph Parker, kind of name them all, Frank Sanchez, Otto Wallin, Gerald Miller. Who have I missed?
Ajit Kabayel.
That's about it.
Yeah.
But that's probably about 10. But when you think there were 7 of the top 10 on the Battle of the Baddest card as well, including Fury, you can see where they're going, and you can imagine the kind of card they're going to put together for February the 17th for the undisputed. So it's a phenomenal time for the heavyweight division, and has really set up a marker of what's going on in boxing right now. That I remember writing a piece when I was out at the Battle of the Baddest that about the Saudi Arabian takeover of heavyweight boxing. Well, we're right in the midst of it now, and it's fascinating. I think it's good for the sport. I won't have anyone say it's bad for the sport, because this is the kind of thing we want. We want the best fighting the best. And as you rightly say, to segue and to bring it into the round so that you can ask your next question, Charlie, which is that to have Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn on the same dais together, talking cooperatively with both Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua on a Queensberry card, because I don't think it's a Matchroom event at all. It's a Queensberry and others. It's great to see, because that's the kind of cooperation we need to see in the division, and it's not before time. But the stars have aligned, the finances have aligned, and I think it's very, very good for boxing. And hopefully the sign of more to come between them as well, down the weight divisions.
Well, Anthony Joshua, clearly a key talking point off the back of that press conference. Clashed with Jarrell Miller, obviously had his little words exchanged with Otto Wallin up on the when they did the face-off there as well. Obviously refused to answer some of Dev's questions, said you're not my promoter, and Eddie ended up doing that. What did you make of that? He was a big talking factor of that day.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Joshua's behaviour was unusual. It was fascinating. I think he wanted to be the kingpin up there. In some ways, some people feel like he did. In other ways, other people felt like he didn't. Um, it was an unusual performance up there. Jarrell Miller could trash talk in an empty room in front of a mirror, couldn't he? And he was earlier on in the night anyway, at Wembley Arena. And I think he was there to razz it up a little bit. You know, obviously he served his band for what he's done wrong. And he's lucky to be back, in my view, very lucky to be back in the frame. He's a difficult fight for Daniel Dubois, by the way, if I just digress into that. That's a 50-50 fight for me with Dubois and Jarrell Miller. Miller's very experienced, and I think he'll test him. But we'll find out about Daniel Dubois in that fight. Really looking forward to that one. Well, I think what I understand, I mean, I thought it was odd at the time when Joshua said, I'm not going to answer your questions. I'm going to get my promoter to ask my questions. I understand it goes back to some kind of Twitter beef or comments made at each other or one to the other on social media. I haven't really taken much notice of that. I thought Dev handled it pretty well. I thought it was a bit unusual by Joshua, but obviously he was trying to raise control for himself at that point, didn't want to be asked certain questions, and wanted Eddie Hearn to control that. I think it looked a little bit odd, if I'm honest, but you know, it was a talking point, and he's always a talking point, Anthony Joshua. But I do think that the guy who commanded the stage really was Deontay Wilder when he spoke. I think he did command the stage. There's no question about it. And it was good to see all these guys shaking hands, be involved with each other. I do hope if Wilder and Joshua win that we do get that fight. It's an enticing, appetizing contest. And if we're going to get Fury and Usyk on February the 17th, and then this may be in March, I think that's fantastic. As early as March, then I think that's fantastic for the heavyweight division. You get all four of the top 4 or 5 guys in action in that space of time, and they're all under the same umbrella, if you like, of Riyadh season, Saudi Arabia, the G8, His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh under one promotional umbrella. I think that's brilliant.
You think this is as realistic as it's been in terms of seeing those fights? We know that we've sort of spoke about them. I think I spoke to you before. This fight with Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder was first ever mentioned in 2015. We find ourselves now still discussing it for a potential clash where they would cross paths in 2024. But after seeing what we've seen last week, is this the most secure we feel about seeing AJ Wilder?
I think it's 5 years in my estimation. I'm not sure it goes back to 2015. I think
First time it was Eddie Hearn spoke about it was 2015.
Yeah, well, that's fine, but I think the actual talks have been about 5
Oh,
years.
yeah, of course. I mean, in terms of people throwing about the talks about the fight.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I mean, when you look at it, of course, 2015, we've seen the evolution of this era. 2015 was when Fury beat Klitschko, remember, as well. So it was a changing of the guard. We had Deontay Wilder as the WBC champion. We had Joshua growing big in that time, wasn't he? I think, what was the IBF, 2017, 2016?
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of this era, if you like, of these guys then in their mid to late 20s. Yeah, I mean, definitely, there's no question that it's close. It's very close. You know, there's the talk of the spanner with Hrgovic and Joshua in the IBF title, but my understanding is behind the scenes. I mean, I don't have a source for this necessarily, but my understanding is behind the scenes that there is the deal here to make Fury and Usyk fight each other, and Wilder and Joshua fight each other, provided they win. Joseph Parker's still going to be a test for Deontay Wilder. I see Wilder as the favourite, although he's only had one round in 20 months?
Yeah,
about 20 months. So that's a big factor, and he's pushing on 40 now, isn't he? 37 or whatever he is. Although it was great to be around him. I spent a little bit of time with him on my own as well when he was over, and that there is a great majesty um, within Deontay, and I've long held the view that he should have been over here for the last 2-3 years, fighting 5 or 6 of our guys. Bring Tally and the family over and base yourself here. I've said it to him on a few occasions, and he's a star over here, which he isn't in America in lots of ways, in that crowded sport and entertainment and music landscape. So he's got a tough fight against Joseph Parker. I see him as a favourite. Otto Wallin is going to be a tricky southpaw if he gets past the first 5 or 6 rounds, and Anthony Joshua is not holding his mettle. I'm delighted Anthony Joshua is working with Ben Davison. I think the timings are what's counted here as well, because I think Derek James is probably taken up till the end of next week, say Monday week, with Ryan Garcia against Oscar Duarte. So that was probably ruling out a trip to Texas. But Ben, I've known 6-7 years, and I think he's a brilliant coach, brilliant trainer. I think he'll be great for Joshua mentally as much as anything. He was fantastic for Tyson Fury, living with him for 11 months, bringing him back from the brink, not letting him out of his sight, working with him as a friend, a mentor, a psychologist, and a coach. You didn't think you were only going to have to ask 2 questions today, did you? But it's all set up. It's a very exciting time, Charlie. I think I can only praise what's happened from the Saudi Arabians getting involved. I mean, I think it's phenomenal for heavyweight boxing, and it's what we've needed. And I've said it all along. We've spoken many times on and off the records. People that are hammering the division, hammering the promoters, hammering the fighters, they were all waiting for the right deal to fall into place. There's a big chess game going on, and now the board is finally in place for the pawns are all set up, and the moving parts with their weird algorithms are now able to take place. And I do think we'll get the culmination of the best fights of this era probably in the next 16 to 18 months.
Well, Gareth, let me ask you on the topic of one of those, Fury Usyk, is that there was so much talk behind the scenes as to the December 23rd date. We obviously know they're not going ahead of that now. It will take place in February. We saw that launch press conference. Oleksandr Usyk, I suppose you can't take too much from. I think we expected him to be like that at the press conference. Tyson Fury, very vocal, very animated, almost more so than usual, but we know that it's been brewing. He's been calling these sort of names and firing these names at Usyk for a long time now. I remember when Usyk was ringside after that fight in Wembley. Was it Wembley with
it was Tottenham?
Tottenham, yes, last time out. So
with Derek Chisora, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
It's been brewing. What did you make of what you saw from Tyson?
He was selling the fight. He was doing his big showman piece. It was a little bit over the top, but he was just going for it. I mean, I saw him just before it. He was as calm as having his lunch, having a cup of tea and his lunch upstairs on the balcony there at Outer Net. I think he's just selling the fight. I think he did want to impose himself physically on Usyk with the head going in when they went face to face. He's probably very frustrated with his last performance against Francis Ngannou. It's probably given him the sharpener. But if he'd been very quiet through the whole thing, I don't think it would have sold like it did. It would, the chat about Fury Ngannou's gone on for 2 or 3 weeks, and now the chat about Fury's comportment in that press conference is the big talking point, and how gentlemanly Usyk was. But Usyk got his little digs in afterwards when he does his piece. He's just not a guy given to trash talk. Fury's a kind of trash talk master. I think there was a bit of humour in there as well. We've heard the sausage comments before and the ugly little middleweight things before. I mean, maybe he could come up with a few more new lines, but I don't think it was, and we probably will get those in the build-up. But he was just selling the fight. I think it was as simple as that. But what I do think was you could tell that he's really up for it, and that you're right.
I'm just moving location very quickly.
Okay. Has the cat come in or something, or the dog come in,
The
or
dog.
the dog? Okay, okay. It's fine. A bit of barking dog in the background. Never hurt anyone. Okay. So you're in your dark room now. Fine. So basically, yeah, I think he was just selling the fight, and you know, people are going to comment. People comment about everything. I mean, if he hadn't made comments, people would have said he's too subdued now after the Ngannou fight. So it just is what it is. And what I made of it was that you know, he wants this to be a big affair. I don't think he's got an awful lot to fear with Oleksandr Usyk. I think it's going to be a tremendous fight. I have a weird instinct that they'll draw the first fight. I just have this weird.
Oh, I remember you saying that. Yeah.
It'll be a split draw, and then they'll do a second fight. But Lennox Lewis reckons that Fury should try and rush Usyk and jump on him. That's what he said to me when we were out at the gala dinner on that night out in Riyadh at the Battle of the Baddest event on the Friday night. But I'm not sure about that. I think it's going to be a very tense, fascinating boxing match that'll be very, very close.
Well, that is something that people have said over the years, that when we see that Fury Usyk undisputed fight, it will be the one that we want to see, but will it stylistically be the most exciting fight? Who knows? That we'll find out in February. Lastly, from me, this week in Dublin, Katie Taylor walked first for the first time in her career. We know how much she's done for the sport, certainly on a female side of things, and trailblazing. She's really up against it this time. It's in Dublin. She's got that home crowd with her again. She's gonna know where she went wrong last time. But Chantelle still bigger, stronger. Last time she went into the fight with a feeling that she could beat Katie Taylor. This time she knows she can beat Katie Taylor. Gareth, how do you assess Katie's chances?
Well, it's a tough fight. I mean, I spoke to Katie last week, and you know, as you said, resurrection's in my DNA. Great line. We know that she's a deeply spiritual person and believes that that she can rise again from the loss. I mean, it's a very close fight. I don't care what anyone says. It was a very close fight last time. Majority decision, 96-94 twice for Chantelle with a 95-95. And I full disclosure, I did speak to Jamie Moore and Chantelle afterwards. I don't think she was too pleased with me that I'd scored it a draw. But it was just one of those very close fights. On the eye test, Chantelle bossed the fight like a champion. She was brilliant, held her ground, was solid the entire fight. You know, Katie looked ragged in the early rounds. It came back stronger. I mean, I've picked Chantelle Cameron to win again. I'm not absolutely certain about it. It's a difficult one to pick. But the reason I've picked Chantelle is I think Katie could have gone for this at lightweight, not light welter. Yawn away, Charlie. Yawn away.
Hey, not just you.
Um, that's in a sense, if Katie had forced it down to lightweight, I think it would have suited her better because Chantelle would have had to cut that weight. But at light welter, I still favour Chantelle to put in the same kind of performance. Having said that, I think it's going to be a very, very close fight still. Having said that, Katie makes adjustments well the second time against an opponent, as we saw against Delphine Persoon, which I had her losing by a round to Delphine Persoon in the first fight in New York, the night that Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz. I think it was that night.
Yeah, it was.
But I thought she was fantastic in the rematch at Matchroom Square Garden. I'm not sure whether you were in the trade at that point.
But, I wasn't. Well, I was-ish, but not.
Well, I'm not even sure you were born at that point, but you hatched from an egg in about 2022, didn't you? You're still a young dinosaur, yeah. So basically, I can see Katie winning on points. But I think Chantelle will just have the edge again. And I'm picking on who I believe will do it. And I think it'll be Chantelle again. But it's a really good fight. You've got to appreciate the fact that Katie Taylor's prepared to take a rematch straight away. She's very bold. I liked the look of her the other day. She looked totally focused. But I think she's got to move more in this fight. Avoid really going toe to toe with Chantelle. Just sting, zing, move, sting, zing, move, stick and move all night.
Let me pick up on that. We've sort of seen in the past Katie's been dragged into some of the wars, perhaps, where she's not necessarily needed to. I mean, we look back at that moments in that Serrano fight where they were just going and absolutely, just going for dust against each other with no real purpose. People have always gone, well, Katie's not always needed to let herself get into these dogfights. Is it almost a discipline thing? We know that regardless of a loss here this Saturday, she still will be undisputed in the lightweight division, but those questions will be asked, almost as if she's fighting for a career a little bit. It has to be a very disciplined performance.
Yeah, discipline, but also going against her greater instincts. I think that's the hardest thing for her, is that, she's not a hit and not be hit kind of character. We've seen that her entire career. She loves a tear up. She's got an amazing fast hand speed style. But that's my concern for her. At 140 pounds, she doesn't carry that power, if you like, that she carries at 135. And Chantelle is a particularly durable kind of fighter. A multiple martial artist, and just so solid. She's like a small tank, isn't she? The way she's built and the way she fights. So we saw her against Jessica McCaskill when she won the undisputed. She can take. She's very smart in the pocket. She's very clever at fighting with her eyes up, which she's got a great radar. And I think she used that against Katie. She was very aware in the entire fight. She's just looked great in her last few fights. Katie's got to hope that she can get ascendancy and momentum earlier on in this fight. It's 10-2s, remember? 10-3s or 12-2s would suit Chantelle, in my view. 3-minute rounds would suit her, but I think Katie's got to be fast, act fast, win early in the rounds, and get ahead and force Chantelle to chase her more and then counter her. That's the way I see it. I think Chantelle will pip it again. I think it's going to be very close. But I don't think it's career over, because I think Katie will go down to lightweight and fight a Serrano or I don't know who else there is out there. Well, Tasha Jonas is at light middle now, isn't she? So I don't know, but I don't think it's career over. I just think it depends on the level of performance in this fight. It's certainly a great prospect. And I'm really looking forward, by the way, to Sky Nicholson and Lucy Wildheart as well. Got to know Lucy well, spoke to Sky last weekend as well. That's a fascinating fight too. Sky says she's going to sit down on her punches a bit more. And Lucy's got a lot of power as well. She's come from different martial arts. Look what Lucy did on 36 hours notice with Michaela Meyer,
Yeah, of course.
So.
Well, Gareth, always lovely speaking to you. I suppose just quickly on the back end of the year, we're sort of spoiled as boxing fans, aren't we? It's every armchair fan's dream.
We've got Bam Rodriguez against Sonny Edwards to decide the number one. Am I talking flyweight in the world? My mind's going. Yeah, flyweight.
Flyweight. Yeah.
Yeah. Really looking forward to that. Where's that? There's that Orlando,
Arizona, Glendale.
Arizona. 16th December, is it?
16th of December, Glendale.
Just kick the globe again. Clear sign that.
I don't like the globe.
There's that. It's a present for someone. So I've just got it under my desk. We got that. We've got
Haney.
Yeah, well, that's a really good fight. That's a really good fight coming up. I think Prograis is going to really test Haney, but if Haney's as elusive as he can be, might be a frustrating night for Regis. Although we all want him to draw Haney into a toe-to-toe. I don't think it'll happen. I think he's too smart for it. I think he'll just get that. I think the December 23 card's going to be amazing. What else is there? That's about it, isn't it, for the year?
Yeah, I think there's Belfast, isn't there? We know.
Conlon and McGill and Jordan Gill. Really looking forward to that as well. Good test for Conlon for his comeback. Yeah.
Well, Gareth, always a pleasure, sir. When will I see you next, my friend?
When will I see you? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I look forward to that moment very much, sir. Thank you, as always, for speaking to us at Boxing Social. Final message to the people?
Peace out.